baseball&apos ; extra inning measure proves hard on pitchers. In 100 years, baseball archaeologists will have a hard time sleuthing the April 25 Class AAA International League game between Charlotte and Louisville because there will be no asterisk attached to the box score. They will not be able to consult a rule book for clues because what happened was not in the rule book. Ron Scahill, a reliever with the Charlotte Knights, threw one pitch and lost. It was not because of a home run. It was not because of the Knights becoming the bad news bears and committing a 4-base error. This is the first season of the minor league extra inning rule in which a runner, who was the hitter in the order previous to the leadoff batter of the extra inning, is put on second base. In the bottom of the 10th of the 1-1 Charlotte-Louisville game, Scahill threw a fastball to Louisville's Blake Trehan. Trehan bunted. Charlotte third baseman Ryan Brett fielded the ball and threw it past first base, and the bat's Steve Selski raced home from second. Game over. Actually, Scahill says, it was kind of funny. This rule will likely be described as things other than funny. Preposterous. Worthless. A further dumbing down of the game. But also exciting, beneficial and progress. What started as light discussion at a meeting of Major League general managers last fall and later included farm directors and player development executives became quasi-law. It was to save teams from throwing a lot of guys out of the bullpen and force teams to have a position player pitch if the games went extraordinary amount of innings. When games are going that long and fatigue is setting in now you are susceptible to some injuries, says Dave Tremblay, the Atlanta Braves minor league field coordinator. And you can bet with the increased reliance of bullpens in the majors, teams want to make sure there are fresh arms in the minors to call up, not arms worn out by 14-inning minor league games the night before. Major League Baseball, of course, oversees ME-Pound. It is a partnership, but never when it comes to player development. So ME-Pound implemented this procedure change in a directive March 14 under title that included the words pace of play. The directive also included limits on mound visits. Here are some finer points of the extra inning rule. The runner who starts at second base and scores is an unearned run. However, the pitcher is not off the hook. He can be charged with the loss. The opposing pitcher will get a win. Jeff Lance, a spokesperson for ME-Pound, says the change is a tryout. He says he received some irate calls and emails when the measure was announced but that the calls have pretty much stopped. The complaints continue at the ballpark. I feel like I'm back in fast-pitch softball, says Beverly Royalston of Norcross, Georgia, who is waiting for a Class AAA game to start between Gwinnett, Georgia, and Norfolk. I didn't like it in fast-pitch softball and I don't like it now in baseball. MLB has the wind at its back given the number of adjustments it has made the last several years to speed up the game and appease restless fans, which include ensuring batters are staying in the batter's box, placing a timer between innings and on pitching changes and regulating mound visits. We could line up former players who will shower you with disgust over this extra inning rule. But how about some features of the extra inning rule you might not have thought about? Minor League Baseball went along with the extra inning procedural change, and one of the biggest reasons likely had to do with money. Beer taps are shut off by the 7th inning in some parks. Concession sales wane. But there are still hourly employees, ushers, scoreboard operators, security, who have to be paid. Absolutely you can lose money if a game goes long, says North Johnson, the general manager of the Gwinnett Stripers. There are more children at minor league games than big league games, so getting kids home is important. Getting to the fireworks show on Friday or Saturday nights is especially important. A game dragging to the 14th inning creates restless 7-year-olds. The extra inning rule does not necessarily cut the game short and save arms. In the Gwinnett Stripers' home opener against Rochester, the game went 14 innings and ended just as baseball executives didn't want it to end. A position player was on the mound for the Stripers because the bullpen was exhausted. More, MLB Awards watch, Mookie Betts or Mike Trout for AL MVP? More, MLB, Cubs and number 39, Anthony Rizzo should have been called for interference on Slide More. Auburn pitcher leads top 30 prospects for Major League Baseball draft. So far it hasn't solved any issues, Gwinnett manager Damon Berryhill said May 11. We have been in 4 extra inning games and we've gone 12 innings twice in 13 and 14. It hasn't sped up our games at all. I think the reason they wanted to do was save some pitching, but it's worked the opposite for us and created more of a problem where we end up burning more of our bullpen. MLB, of course, hopes that the rule cleans itself up with the law of averages. But will it? Put a man on second and then watch polished professional hitters move that runner to third and then score him inning after inning with a ground ball to the right side or a fly ball. If you execute, you score a run, Berryhill says. Everybody realizes everybody can score a run, so it's more or less become that the visiting club wants to score multiple runs and take that bunt situation away from the home club. You can also watch the defense stymie the offense. The inning starts with the runner on second. If the first batter makes an out, the manager on the defensive intentionally walks a batter to set up a double play. That has been, so far, the strategy of choice in many games. A lot of it comes down to what part of the order is coming up, says Ron Johnson, the Norfolk Tides manager. We've had more success with the lower part of the order coming up because they are guys who are possibly bunters. But if I get a runner on second base with 3, 4, 5 coming up, I'm not bunting because they are guys who you are developing into guys who drive in runs. The extra inning rule adds a level of intrigue to the game. The savvy fan can play along and second-guess the manager to his or her heart's content. The managers will do their own second-guessing if a move blows up. It's almost like playing a 9-inning game and then a totally different game begins in the 10th, Ron Johnson says. I haven't come up with a perfect method. I have had games where we've lost and elected to swing the bat and we haven't scored. Then you think, should we have moved that guy over? Jason Hirsch, a reliever for the Gwinnett Stripers, says situations can dictate the moves. If you get an out and walk a guy, the guy on first isn't going anywhere, Hirsch says. If you can get the ground ball, you are out of the inning with a double play. If you have a pitcher who gets a lot of ground balls, it's not going to hurt you to walk a guy. If you are not a ground ball pitcher, I'm not sure that's the best strategy. The one thing the home team does not want to do is open up a big inning with an intentional walk. Managers also don't want to extend games with tit for tat, you score, we score, and whoever fails to execute bunt them over, drive them home loses. You have to manage your game, Ron Johnson says. You say, look, I have 2 pitchers left for tonight, I have to go for 2 runs. If you are short of pitching, what's the purpose of tying the game up and you have to pitch a position player? Andy Tomberlin, the hitting coach for the Charlotte Knights and former big leaguer, takes sides with pitchers who get saddled with a loss in extra innings. Athletes are loath to make excuses, but they might have to do so if extra inning losses pile up. You're negotiating at the end of the year on your numbers and those numbers can be skewed, Tomberlin says. I don't think there is an asterisk there. You hate to have to explain it yourself. The numbers talk and you want the numbers to speak. When you have to talk between the numbers, it's tough. When a guy scores and you had nothing to do with it, I would think that's hard to accept if I'm a pitcher. Scahill, who got the 1-pitch loss for Charlotte, says an organization's player development staff will have its radar up if a pitcher loses 4 or 5 extra inning games. He is not worried about it for now. But what is it like for the pitcher who takes the mound in the 10th inning and has a runner behind him? Norfolk's Matt Weatherspoon toed the rubber his first time pitching in extra innings this season and was about to pitch from a full windup. I suddenly realized I have a guy on, and stepped off, and went to the stretch, he says. The stint ended badly for Weatherspoon. He gave up a 2-run home run in the top of the 11th as the Tides lost to Buffalo 8-6. Gwinnett's Hirsch says, it was weird to go out there and I haven't thrown a pitch and there is a guy on second. You try and block that out, but then you have to think about if they are going to bunt and your play. Was it a little unnerving? The first time, yes it was, he says. Is there a better remedy for tired arms for baseball to consider than starting a runner at second in the extra inning? I think maybe play 1 or 2 extra innings and then if the game is tied, it stays tied, Ron Johnson says. We are geared toward helping the Major League club. So should they go into a 15, 16-inning game in Baltimore, the Orioles are the team's parent club, we need to make sure we have pitching prepared and rested so they can reach down for guys to help. In AAA you want to stay away from massive extra inning games. Ron Johnson says ties could count for points, like they are in hockey. The so-called purists, of course, want none of the modern contrivances, or the borrowing from other sports. I feel like at this level you should play the game straight up, Barry Hill says. This is never going to go into the big leagues. I feel like these guys have to prepare like they have to be in the big leagues tomorrow. If they are always going out there in the 10th inning with a runner on second, it's not realistic.